Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leo Alves podcast. And in today's podcast episode, I have a guest with me. And if you've been listening for long enough, you'll know sometimes I'll occasionally come outside of the health and fitness world and interview a guest who, to do with something that I have an interest in as well. And I thought today I would reach out to someone whose YouTube videos I enjoy very much. I think they've been doing a brilliant job. They're in the trading card world. I won't say too much. I'll let them introduce themselves, but maybe we can go from who you are, what you do, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. I'm really excited to be on today. My name's Oliver. You might know me as Sleeve No Card Behind on YouTube. I make educational content on Pokemon cards. So my channel's aimed towards beginners, people who are just getting into Pokemon cards, or maybe people who took a long hiatus. Maybe you collected in 1999, 2000, and you're just getting back into it today. It's way different. It's way more nuanced. Things are kind of crazy. So my channel just kind of breaks that all down into a nice, easy to understand way.
Nice. Where are you based, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in British Columbia, Canada.
Okay, okay. Very interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. I don't know if you've ever mentioned it, but yeah, your videos are very helpful. What inspired like the whole reason for starting it?
Uh, the that's a good question. I don't know if I could really filter down to like one defining inspiration, but the first thing that comes to mind is I kind of dipped back into Pokemon around the pandemic. I've always been a vintage collector, so collecting the cards from my childhood. And embarrassingly, I kind of turned my nose up at modern cards. But during the pandemic, things got really wild, and I kind of got back into the community of Pokemon, and there was just so much misinformation online. And I think it was Reddit especially where I noticed, and I think because there's an anonymity component to Reddit, people are more likely to um, role play as professionals. And there was just so much misinformation, and I was seeing people sell their cards for too cheap. I was seeing people being misled to, believe the wrong things. And I thought, hey, we don't have an educational resource on the internet. Like we've got some really good forums we can visit. There are some great uh, resources out there, but they're spread thin. So I just really hated seeing that. It was like this wildfire that was spreading, and I thought, okay, we need something. So I'm gonna make that thing.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people got back into it around 2020. Funnily enough, that's when I did as well, around 2020. And I feel like a lot of people did just because, obvious reasons, I think to many by now with the pandemic going on and many people were at home. But in today's podcast episode, there are a lot of questions that I have, and they're more just like selfish questions that I've always wondered, and that I'm sure the listener will definitely be interested in hearing about as well. So, how do you? And I have like a whole bunch of things I want to ask you today, but how do you decide what to speak about on a specific video? Because I would say I watch most of your videos and I've seen the last few, and I think right now you're doing like deep dives into different sets, but you've also done a lot of other things as well. So how do you decide what to do a deep dive on?
When it comes to ideation, I have a very, very long list. Whenever I have an idea, I'll write it down. Sometimes I'm, waiting for my wife to get ready, or I'm waiting for an appointment or something, and I will ideate. Quite often, what I'll do is I'll just scroll through my YouTube homepage and I'll look at videos that catch my eye and think, okay, how would this video be if it was in the Pokemon card niche and if it was educational? And so I have a long list of ideas. 99% of them are bad, but 1% of them are absolute bangers. So I really try to make videos that are educational. I've had a few breakout successes. If I go to my YouTube analytics page and I sort my videos by most views, I can see the most successful videos are the ones that take a complicated subject that just has a lot of like fogginess around it. It's confusing. And then I take that and break it down. For example, one of my most successful videos is explaining the Pokemon card rarity system. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Pokemon cards, they come in booster packs, and a lot of them are common or uncommon, and you want to pull a rare card. But it's a little more nuanced than that. There is rare, but now we have double rare, ultra rare, A spec, hyper rare, illustration rare, special illustration rare, black white rare, mega attack rare. It just keeps going. And it doesn't say that on the card. Instead, they use a symbol, which sucks. If someone's new to Pokemon, um, a symbol just doesn't cut it. So I break that down into an easy to understand video. And so I try and take complicated topics and make them easy.
Oh, nice. I think
Is
your
my
video
video
has
cut
moved
out?
on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can hold on a moment. I've actually seen that video. I thought it was really good. Um,
Thank you.
I and the reason why like that sticks out to me as well is because I did get into it and back into it in 2020. Then I kind of got back out of it in like 2022, and then I was away from it for like 2 or 3 years, and then I kind of got back into to it all like again last year, and all those levels of rarity that you were just discussing. I don't know if you're into other trading cards, but I find it's like there's quite a lot of similar situations going on with various different trading cards right now, where it's like I don't know if you collect sports cards or know sports cards, but there's like so many different parallels. Um, it wasn't like that when I was younger. I feel like an uncle saying that, but like yeah, like back in the day, or maybe it was. I don't know. I don't recall that at least. Like I feel like nowadays you've got like so many different numbered cards and then so many different sort of like holographic effects. And I guess it's the same in Pokemon now where they keep just like every I don't know a few years they like one up it and now there's this other level of rarity. Why? I'm not sure, but maybe you have some thoughts behind it.
Yeah, I think trading card companies or trading card games, they have to make new and better value propositions as time goes on, because they're competitive. You know, Pokemon is targeting the same audience that Yu-Gi-Oh is targeting, and One Piece right now, which is really big. Back in the day, Digimon was a big competitor. We have Magic the Gathering. So they do have to come out with newer, better things to keep their audience engaged. Like they want to make money, of course, and they want me to spend money on their trading card game, not the competition. So I think that's where that stems from, but it is pretty annoying.
Yeah, do you think and do you think on a quick side note, do you think what is going on with One Piece right now, like in regard to the hype, do you think that's something that will be sustained long term? And just complete up to you, no scientific backing, it's just gut feeling.
Yeah, this is pure speculation. But we're in a big hype cycle right now, not just for Pokemon, but for collectibles and even for alternative assets. When the economy is a little rough, people are more likely to invest their money in these alternative avenues like collectibles. So One Piece is seeing this huge run up, this huge hype cycle, boom, whatever you want to call it. My gut feeling is that it will come down. There's always a market correction. We see this in collectibles, but also things like uh, antiques, for example. There is usually a market correction and a stabilization after that. If we look at Pokemon, Pokemon's a beast. Like it's an absolute behemoth of a franchise. And Pokemon cards, if we look back from 2003 to about 2010, it wasn't doing so well. And then 2010 to 2016, it was doing a little bit better, but still not great. So Pokemon actually went through this 10-ish year slog, but survived. And I think that uh, is what proves a trading card game. So One Piece has so much hype behind it right now. I do think it's going to correct, but I think the test of time is what we need to really look at. We need to know that when the market does correct, when the hype does die down, will One Piece still survive? Is it going to make it through? Like a Super Saiyan, the closer they get to death, the stronger they become in the long run, right? And that's kind of like that's super nerdy, but that's also how trading card franchises are if we look at the past.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, a very thoughtful answer. I think I remember I think it was in the early 2000s when I kind of came out of Pokemon cards as well within my childhood, moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I was in that for a few years and then kind of yeah, I just got out of it completely. But yeah, I think that's a very sensible opinion. I know you said within you got back into it in 2020. I wanted to ask as well, let's say maybe in like the last 2 years or so, are there any beliefs maybe that you firmly held before regarding just like the Pokemon trading cards, collectibles, etc. And maybe you've changed your mind on it now?
Yeah, first one that comes to mind is investing into Pokemon as an alternative asset. I was really against that. I'm very risk adverse with my money. I invest in very low risk, long term things. And I've always been very hesitant to put a lot of money into Pokemon cards. And I'm kind of I'm not feeling great about that mindset anymore, which is there's a lot of contention in the hobby. There's a lot of there's different camps, right? Some people think, I'm a true collector. I don't I don't dabble in the investing, and then some people say, hey, this is a business. I'm not emotionally attached to Pokemon, and I was really on the collector side of the spectrum, and now I think I'm somewhere in the middle because I'm seeing people background as early as the pandemic, but even just 2 years ago, be risky with their money and dump a lot of their money into Pokemon, and they've made incredible returns just a year or two later. I'm sure you've seen like the Wall Street Journal headline: Pokemon outperforms the S&P 500 and gold and silver. Like it's absolutely crazy right now. And I was always sort of advising against investing in Pokemon, but now seeing so much success, I am changing my mind about that. Of course, this could change in the long term. I could be right, I could be wrong, I could be naive. I don't know, but that has really, I'm really sort of shifting on that. People who are um, putting more than single digits of their net worth into collectibles, I'm starting to believe in that a little bit more slowly.
Was there a moment where you were like, where you had that maybe is I don't know if epiphany is the right word, but where you felt like suddenly felt like that?
I'm pretty stubborn, so there's definitely a few moments before I started to cave. But most recently, I have been selling off a lot of my collection just bit by bit and putting that into a piggy bank because I would like to buy a first edition Charizard, which I think everyone knows by now is a pretty expensive card. And about 6 months ago, I was ready to pull the trigger on one, and I got cold feet and I backed out. I said it's too expensive. I'm going to wait for the market to cool off a little bit. Well, it's more than doubled since then in just a matter of months, and that was really kind of the nail in the coffin for me. And I thought, okay, you know what? I can afford to be a little bit risky. Um, I'm going to admit to myself I should have purchased that card, and yeah, that we're really I'm a little bit upset about that still.
I
Let's
can
put
I
it
can
that
tell
way.
I can see and hear it. Was this the Shadowless version?
Yeah, it was the Shadowless
Oof.
first edition one.
Okay, Raw.
And no, I was looking for well, I haven't fully decided. PSA is sort of like the gold standard in grading. You can get a pretty good discount if you go with a different company like CGC. I just didn't want to buy raw because that card is faked very often. And I'm pretty good at detecting fakes, but I've always asked myself the question like, if there are fakes out there that are so good, um, there's no way of knowing, right? So I'm
Exactly.
kind of leaning on that third party opinion. So I was looking for something in the 4 all the way up to 7 range in terms of grade.
And is there another card that you have your eyes on now, or is it still that Shadowless Charizard first edition?
It's still that first edition Charizard. I'm headed out to a card show this weekend. I'll see what happens, but the market is pretty hot right now. I would be a little bit hypocritical if I bought one this weekend.
Mm, I feel like, and I could be completely wrong here. This is just my non-expert opinion from someone who ha has seen trends for a long time, for a long while now. I feel like even when the market is really hot, at least I'm not necessarily speaking about modern here, maybe more like vintage cards. I feel like, and maybe I can hear your opinion on this. I feel like, okay, it's hot, and then eventually, it does relax, it does calm down. Most cards, head back down. But I feel like those top 1% of cards, you don't really see that as much. You might see a slight dip, but I think long term, once it's got a new like, once a vintage grail has a new like ceiling, I don't think it really goes far from there again. Otherwise, at least for a while. Like, I mean, downward.
Yeah, I would say generally that's correct. There's definitely some exceptions. We did see some cards in 2021, 2022 break records, and they have not come back to that even in this hype cycle. But yeah, generally speaking, when one of these vintage grails blows up, there's usually a small correction, but it does stabilize at a new height.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good luck with that, and I hope you have
Thank
you
you.
enjoy the card show because I can yeah the regret I can still see it there, and I've had moments like that myself, but we're talking ETB promos, like I'm not not a first edition Shadowless Charizard. And on that note, are there any cards in your collection right now where you would never sell it? Like maybe those one, two to three cards where you're just like, no, that's off bounds. I can't let that go ever.
Um, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a few. I happen to have some sitting on my desk right here. I've got these, I've got some like old, like 1996 Japanese cards I
Oh,
really like.
nice.
Like I got my old Pikachu. I don't really want to let this go. This is, I mean, it represents the beginning of Pokemon, which is really cool.
Yeah, the
It
rookie card.
also, yeah, it also represents one of my biggest wins in Pokemon because I purchased this for literal pennies.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
and it's worth over 2000 Canadian right now. So I'm really happy about that. Um, I guess you could say I'm proud of that. And I think I would probably let anything go for the right price. What I'm trying to do right now is make my collection smaller and a little more impressive. I have been building it out as an educational resource. It's just a byproduct of having my YouTube channel. So I have lots and lots and lots of Pokemon cards that I've purchased for B-roll or I've purchased for educational purposes that I don't have any emotional attachment to. But yeah, things like that, things that I've held on to for over a decade that are worth a lot now that I just really like. Anything that reminds me of that old watercolor illustration from the early or the late 90s and early 2000s, sort of like my first experience with Pokemon, something that reminds me of the original anime or choosing my first starter, that kind of stuff. I'm emotionally attached to. I don't really want to sell that stuff.
Yeah, because I was going to say when it comes to your YouTube videos, whenever I feel like you have a card for every example. So yeah, now that I can see why with it does make sense. But yeah, I think I can definitely relate. I think we're from a I don't know your age, but I think we're definitely I have a feeling we're a similar age, so I feel quite similar to everything you're saying right now. Um, I did want to ask you a few other things, I guess, about trading cards, but I also had some questions in mind about your YouTube channel as well. So obviously you're a passionate collector. Would you say that having a YouTube channel, which honestly, you've done a really amazing job with. You've grown really well. Like I've obviously,
Thank
as
you.
I said, I've seen a lot of your videos. They're really good quality. They're high quality. Um, I can see a lot of time and effort goes into them. Uh, I can't remember how many subscribers you have now, but I would like to know, like, do you feel like growing a YouTube channel to the size you've been growing it, and I guess making it a big part of your life? Do you feel like it's like maybe helped your interest in the hobby, or almost kind of hurt it in a way?
That's a really good question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. And that's something that I actually think about on a semi-regular basis because I've seen a lot of other YouTubers get very successful and burn out. And that's something that I'm sort of hyper aware of. I don't want this YouTube channel to be the thing that kills Pokemon for me. So I've been very careful to enjoy what I'm doing. I think when it comes to YouTube, you can make videos that serve the algorithm that you know are going to perform well. You can use clickbait thumbnails, but that stuff isn't it isn't rewarding creatively. So I have grown very well. I'm very proud of that. I'm at I think 71,000 subscribers now, and I think I could grow faster, and I think I could get more views and in turn more money by sort of selling my soul to the algorithm. And I've chosen to not totally do that. I do make some videos that obviously I might want my videos to do well, but I'm always taking into account, um, am I going to have fun making this video? Can I be creative making this video? And I think as long as I have that creative outlet, I think I'm going to be fine. I think I'm going to love Pokemon. I think I'm going to love YouTube. But if I don't know what's going to happen in the future, if I'm struggling financially, if some hardship falls on me and I have to sacrifice my creativity for views, I think that's probably what's going to drive um, or be the catalyst to me falling out of Pokemon or sort of disliking it.
Was there a specific moment with your YouTube channel where you were like, something happened and you were like, whoa, I think, you know what, I'm gonna double down on this. I think this has potential.
Yeah, so that could be a long story. I'm gonna
Yeah,
make
we
it a
got
short
time.
story.
We have time for both. You can pick.
I originally had started out on my online entrepreneurial journey as a fitness blogger, and I turned that into an online coaching business, which got a total of zero clients. It was really hard. I went I'm sure you get this. Like I went into an evidence-based fitness niche, and everything I wrote had to have references, and I'm spending like so much time reading through studies and oh man, it was brutal. It would take me like a week to put together an article that just didn't do much. And then one day I thought, you know what? I need to get my butt moving on this Pokemon card education idea that I have. And so I started Pokemon card blog. And as soon as I started doing that, I dropped the fitness thing so fast because I realized this is way more. I'm such a creative person that this is so much better for me. And
Which
so
year was
that
this?
this would have been the end of 2019, I believe. And I thought, okay, I wasn't happy writing scientific fitness content because I couldn't be creative. It's very like factual and evidence based. And so that was the first switch that sort of that flicked in me. I was like, okay, I'm into Pokemon card stuff like way more. Like this is so much easier to write in terms of like creating content. And then I thought, okay, I should start a YouTube channel because some of these articles are kind of boring and I not everyone likes to read, so there should be a video component to it. And so some of my best articles, I decided to upgrade with a short YouTube video. Terrible, terrible awful videos. I'm so embarrassed. I've delisted most of them from YouTube. Um, and then I ended up quitting my job because my blog was very successful. But unfortunately, a Google update rolled out and just absolutely killed my blog. Coincidentally, on the same day that I gave my notice at work. And I had some savings, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take a leap of faith here, and I'm going to go all in. I'm going to pivot to YouTube. And that was a tough, scary decision. But I was really embarrassed to sort of tell my coworkers, "Oh, I'm quitting to be a YouTuber." That was a tough thing to say out loud, and I was very unsure about that. I wouldn't recommend someone does that until they have some subscribers, maybe. But yeah, so I kind of like lost my way there for a while. I was making Pokemon card content, I was opening booster packs because that's what some of the big YouTubers do. And I was just giving my opinion because that's what some of the other big YouTubers do. And then I made a video. I don't know if you must remember the Ancient Mew Pokemon card from 1999 or 2000.
Yeah.
You got it for free when you went to see the Pokemon movie in theaters. And there are actually 6 different versions of this card.
I didn't know that until I watched your video.
Right. Because we don't know. Because we got that card when we were 6, 7, 8 years old. And it's a core memory for all of us who grew up in that time. It's something that like pretty much everyone can relate to. Even if you don't collect Pokemon cards today, everyone recognizes that Ancient Mew card. And yeah, there's 6 different versions of it. So I made a video about that. And I think my videos were getting an average of 5, 6, 700 views each. And within a week, that video had 20,000 views. And that just put me in my lane. I was like, okay, educational. I don't know why I ever veered away from that. So I went back into it. I tried to find some other things like that, things that collectors don't know, and break it down. And that's sort of how I've arrived to where I am now. So that Ancient Mew video was the big one that really sort of set me back on my educational path and proved to me, it was a proof of concept that like, hey, I have an audience that wants to learn about Pokemon cards. They don't want to see pack openings. They don't want to hear my opinions. They want to learn.
Mm. There's a few things I want to say. So yeah, that's a really cool story, first of all. Second, um, I guess you've always had that coaching side of you. You went from, I guess, coaching fitness now to, teaching in the trading card world. So it's obviously very clear you've always been a teacher and being evidence. And another thing I can relate to is sometimes back into the fitness world, you can spend hours and hours and hours making a piece of content and then finally get it out and you feel like yes, like I feel so good about myself for getting that out. Like I put a lot of time and effort into that and then nothing. Like I've been there many times. And then on the other hand, it's like the thing that you make in it's like the passing thought reel that you make or video that gets all this traction. Yeah, that's one thing that's always boggled my mind. Um, yeah, so that was another thing, but I'm just trying to. There was quite a few things that you said there, but yeah, I think that definitely what the algorithm with Google's change in the algorithm, that's always like one thing that has always that's passed my mind a lot with with my world as well, with what I do with with the fitness coaching world. It's like it's like because I have business mentors as well. I've had a few. I've gone through different ones, and there was one that always said like, don't get too comfortable on one social media platform because if they change their algorithm tomorrow, like you're done. So like, don't build your house on someone else's lawn, is what they would say. Um, so they'd always like push growing your email list because then you own that. That's for another podcast episode maybe. But yeah, I think definitely what you did in regard to the decision clearly paid off, and I can imagine how hesitant you were definitely feeling at first with that coinciding on the same day as your resignation, and then telling everyone I'm going to going into YouTube, which yeah, um, a lot of people would. Yeah, more so before. I think now, I think there's definitely a growing awareness that it's possible. Um, but yeah, it clearly made it pay off, and yeah, props to you. That was a very
Thank you.
interesting story. Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. And I did see that video about the ancient Mew as well. I didn't know there was so many different variations until I watched your video. I never got to own that card. I'd like to. I think the price of it like has shot up a lot this past year. Um, I think the only movie promos I ever owned was the Electabuzz one from the early 2000s. I think I had a Mewtwo one, but I lost it. And the Entei Reverse Holo, which was underpriced in my opinion for such a long time. I can't believe it was at like $7 forever. I picked up a near mint copy last year at $7, and now it's just shooting up. And I'm hoping to get it signed by the voice of Entei in April. Um, and yeah, that's my that's my own tangent, but yeah, yeah, that's what I had in mind to say from what you said.
Yeah, I think what you said about one piece of content taking so much work and not performing, and then you kind of put out a reel and it blows up or something. That is what happened with that Ancient Mew video. I was working so hard on like ideation and storytelling and script writing and putting out this content. And I was really, at the time, I wouldn't recommend a new YouTuber does this now, but at the time, I was under the impression that I had to put out a video once a week. And it was like Wednesday night, and I didn't know what to put out on Friday. And so I made that Ancient Mew video in like a day. And
Wow.
to see that's exactly what you're explaining, to put so much effort into some stuff and then have something that was so little effort blow up. That really told me that like there's an audience for this. If you can slack off and sort of like pull together a piece of content like this, the video is not great, I think objectively, but the subject of the video is really good. The topic of the video is really, really good. um, so that's sort of when I unlocked that idea that the subject of the video or the topic or what you're presenting in the packaging is extremely important. And your lighting and your sound matter, but what that video is about is what matters most.
Okay. Yeah. And is there anything you would say like you wish you could go back and tell yourself from when you first started your YouTube channel that you know now? I'm sure there's so many things, but
So
maybe
many
like one big,
things.
maybe like one really big one.
I think like the biggest one would just to start earlier. I think that's probably the biggest one, because no matter how good you are, I mean, there's some exceptions out there, obviously, but even if you look at Mr. Beast, he's man, I haven't checked lately. I think he's at like 400 million subscribers, but he went like a decade with no one. He was just uploading videos to the void. And I think it's really that kind of like, to go back to what we were talking about earlier with Pokemon surviving that 10-year slog and coming out stronger. That's kind of like what Mr. Beast did. And I do worry about my channel sometimes because I kind of launched it with the hype of Pokemon. And I'm wondering, hey, when that slog comes, I'm going to have to, it might be rough, but I'm going to have to push through it. So I wish I just started earlier, to not sort of launch my online career at the same time as this Pokemon hype. I feel like that gave me a really good platform to jump off of, but I never got to lay down that foundation, that like 2 to 3 years of no one watching me. I never got that.
Okay. And in regard to obviously having done it for a few years now, and being you're obviously a big collector now, and I guess you have been for a lot of your life. How do you feel about the hobby of Pokemon trading cards as a whole right now?
Sometimes I feel pretty grim about it. um,
Really?
yeah, I mean, when we go back to, I was born in 1994. So Pokemon was huge when I entered the public school system. I never had a choice. Basically, my first day of school, everyone had Pokemon cards. And it's kind of like the core of elementary school for me. And back then, you would trade a card that you liked, or sorry, you would trade a card you didn't like for a card you did like. And it's just not like that anymore. I felt like the original 151 Pokemon were my friends because I played games with them. I had cards. I watched the TV show, and all of my friends did too. And things are a lot different now. Every single card has an assigned value. Every card. We have 10-cent cards. We have $10 million cards. It's insane that that's a thing now. And people have $1 million empires built on Pokemon cards. It's not the same. And so it can feel pretty bad if you're returning to Pokemon after all this time to find out that sort of like it feels like the passion isn't there anymore and it's more complicated now. I do think that what we're holding on to isn't always what Pokemon used to be, but it was just being a kid, you know? I do associate those original Pokemon with not having to pay my mortgage. I didn't have bills. I didn't have to worry about paying my car insurance, all those things, right? So I have a strong correlation with the beginning years of Pokemon with also just being a child. And it can be tough to want to get back to that and have life tell you, no, you can't go back to that. You're an adult now. You have these responsibilities, but also that thing you loved, Pokemon, we can't go back to that either. That's also changed. It's a tough thing to deal with. My favorite cards, like I said earlier, remind me of those early days, but they only remind me of those early days. They don't help me relive them. I can't get my childhood back. So the hobby today is like way, way different. Pokemon cards have changed so much. Some people are pretty negative about it. I've heard that some collectors are backing out or quitting because, we got scalpers, we have bad actors in the hobby. There's this Logan Paul stuff going on. There's these $1 million cards up for auction. Uh, but I've sort of arrived to this idea that it's actually never been a better time to start. The community will catch you if you fall. This is a fantastic community. It's really amazing. Yes, we have bad actors. Yes, we have scalpers, and there's a lot of fraud. And if you buy a card online, you could get scammed. It happens. But the amount of people who are celebrating Pokemon for what it is also crazy hyped right now. Like it's great. There are so many people who are really showing their passion for Pokemon. And it's also evolved the hobby in a really, really cool way. Like we're adults now. We're in our 30s. A lot of us can build cool things like companies or apps or tools. And it's so much more accessible now. There's so many apps for tracking your collection or quickly pulling up prices. And there's so many resources like my YouTube channel, for example, like as millennials, as people in our 30s who have disposable income now, we have kind of ruined the Pokemon card scene a little bit, but we've also we've given a lot back. Sorry, that was a weird answer. That was a ramble.
No, no, no. I definitely agree. I remember when I first got back into it because I can relate to what you're saying. I remember like seeing certain videos and like you'll do people opening booster packs, skipping all the cards at the beginning and then just jumping at straight up to the end. Like they're not even looking at the cards. And I remember that was like, oh, that was kind of weird to watch. Because I guess I just wasn't ever used to that. So I can definitely relate into I agree with what you're saying. Everything, the pros and the cons. Um, I do think, yeah, it's just in a it's in an interesting place now, and I think as you said, it's a great time to start too. I have heard with all of this, there are a lot of, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, a lot of discussions online about how can they increase the hype even further, and there's these back and forths about would they ever introduce numbered cards? And I guess they kind of did it with the Chinese Mew, but that wasn't like actually serialized. Whereas I get a lot of people online have their opinion on it. I'd love to hear what you think as to whether or not they should do it and why.
I don't think they're going to do it. I could be wrong. They might. But I think I would be disappointed if they did. Pokemon's I know a lot of people say it's a kid's game, and then some people push back. They say, well, no, it's marketed to adults now. That's I'm not so sure which one of those is true, but if we look at sports cards, for example, uh, they're quite a bit different than Pokemon. Sports cards have some crazy chases. Like we're talking one of ones. There's like you
Lionel
said
Messi
earlier.
autograph.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like
with his shirt.
if
Yeah, yeah.
if you go grab a box of like Topps sports cards, you can read the odds on the side of the box. And it's crazy, man. It's like if you want this variant, it's like 1 in 30,000. If you want this variant, it's like 1 in 250,000. And Pokemon's never done that. Pokemon's chase cards can be hard to pull, but compared to sports chase cards, it's not even close. So Pokemon has done a very good job, and I think it's really important to the company that these cards are accessible. And so I think that's why we're probably not going to get serialized cards. I think that's too much of a departure from their values.
I completely agree. I don't think they will because I think they've built such a strong brand and a behemoth of of just a trading card brand, as you've said, that I don't see why they would radically shake it up in such a way. Because I've heard people say, oh, they can just experiment with it and then go back. And if it doesn't work out, they can just go back to not having numbered cards, but they can't just go back. Because once you've introduced it, it's done forever. Like every future set is going to be compared to that past one. Um, yeah, I don't think they will do it. And like you said, I agree. I think if they did do it, I would be quite disappointed as well, just because I think one reason why I like it, I do like the franchise is because they don't do that. And and yeah, I think if they also did do numbered cards, you'd also just like suddenly realize how common, and I say that in air quotes, like modern chase cards are, like a Moonbryon. I think people would be like mind blown at how many are actually out there compared to like maybe just like Skyridge, vintage, good condition, uncommon cards, for example. Um, I think that would also like really. Yeah, there'd be a lot. I think it'd be too much for the hobby at one go all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I think if we look at that Mew, so I believe it's 1,151 total copies were made, and the number isn't printed on the card. I've heard that it comes with a certificate with the serial number. I don't know that for sure. I'm
I don't
not
know as
really
well.
interested in that card. Also, that card is printed in simplified Chinese, which is actually run by Pokemon Company Shanghai. It's a different company. Now, of course, it's a part of Pokemon, but they are doing things a little bit differently. I don't know what's going on there on a high level. I don't know if they're using Pokemon Shanghai to do some experimenting, perhaps. Maybe they're testing the waters. I don't really think that's the case, but it's totally possible. Or they're just saying like, hey, this is almost serialized, but it's in this sort of other part of the hobby. And to me, that was sort of a way of them saying, like, don't worry, Japan and international, we're not going to, like, we understand this probably isn't the time or place to do this. So it's happening over here in this sort of like gray area.
Yeah, that's a very good shout. I didn't actually think of that of them potentially testing the waters with that. I do think that makes a lot of sense because I'm sure for sure there are so many decisions that go on in the background that they're not very open about. Because to be fair, I feel like the trading card company, Pokemon, I don't think they reveal a lot. Like they don't share a lot of like their thought processes or information. They just release it almost, and you don't really know their thoughts or why or what's going on. Um, like and this brings up like I remember even like because I feel like a lot and I was just speaking about Skyridge for example I remember looking at that set and I feel like well that era has like the best artwork, so why did they just like drastically change it up? I don't think they ever released an official statement, but I'm sure it's just something to do with like corporate branding or trying to be consistent. I don't know. um but yeah, that was just an example of them, I guess, just not having ever really said much at the front, but I'm sure so many decisions happen in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, they Pokemon Company is highly classified. Like they don't share a lot of information. I get a lot of people asking like, "Oh, how many cards are printed in a set?" or why did they do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't work for Pokemon. And if I did, I wouldn't be allowed to tell you. It's all speculation. Like um a lot of this hobby is speculation. And there's definitely like data points. Like we can look at patterns, we can see what's going on. Skyridge, for example, we know that when e-readers or the e-series came out, they were hated. Like people didn't like
I
them.
I didn't as a kid.
I don't remember disliking them, but I remember trading mine away for sure. I was like, I would prefer the other cards. We also know that Wizards of the Coast was in charge of distributing Pokemon cards at that time, and their contract was not being renewed. So it was never said officially by the Pokemon Company, but Skyridge was probably cut short because Pokemon was eager to get in there and clean out Wizards and sort of refresh Pokemon cards with a new series. So it is all speculation. Some of it is pretty obvious, like the Wizards and Skyridge thing. But when it comes to other things like pull rates, which they do not share with us, number of cards printed, they don't share with us. There's a lot of leaks. They're really quiet about that stuff, and they do not acknowledge the secondary market.
Hmm. I do wonder how because I think they're more transparent with pull rates in China right now, at least they're Chinese trading cards. I don't know if you ever had seen Chinese booster packs, but I think I could be wrong. But I opened a few last year, towards the end of last year, in which I actually pulled the Pikachu Psyduck card, which was really cool. Yeah,
Wow.
I know. I was there. I was like, what the fuck?
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. That was the best pull I've ever had. And but on the back, if I remember correctly, it does show the pull rates. But they only do that with China, and I don't. Again, we'll only be speculating here. I'm not sure why they do that there, but
We
yeah.
have different laws,
Yeah.
basically.
Mm,
Japan's got some pretty strict like gambling laws. So, for example, if you buy a booster box from Japan, there is a guaranteed secret rare in there. It's basically a way of saying like, hey, you can't sell things to customers and not give them something. Whereas in North America here, you can buy a booster box and just get absolutely wiped. Like you can get nothing. So it comes down to the laws of different countries.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, I feel like that I wanted to speak to you a little bit about because I know you were quite a bit you were in the health and fitness space a lot. I know you were very into powerlifting, calisthenics as well. Was there anything about trading cards, Pokemon, the whole franchise that you would like to discuss in a bit more depth before I completely change the conversation, or that we missed completely?
Mm, I'm not sure. Well, since we're not speaking to a Pokemon card audience like I usually am, I will just say like, hey, if you are thinking about getting into Pokemon cards, it is a really good time right now. But it is, I just want to sort of give a disclaimer or a warning. This can be an addicting thing. I've had some friends or real life friends or online friends who have gone into Pokemon this past year or so, and they've spent way more money than they ever intended on spending. Booster packs do have a gambling aspect to them. There's also a crazy market right now, and FOMO, or fear of missing out, is really high. So I would say if this conversation has intrigued you, if you're going to check out my channel, or if you're going to go to the store and try and buy some Pokemon cards, um, keep it in the back of your mind that some people do struggle um, with this. They do get addicted to this. Uh, this is gambling in many cases. So I just want to be upfront about that. I don't want anyone to, get curious and then all of a sudden get sucked down into that sort of toxicity. So I will say that.
Yeah, there's definitely opening sealed products is definitely a gamble at the end of the day, and it's why I prefer buying singles. I'm not the biggest fan of buying packs, but I think it's really fun to open with friends and family who are also into it. So I can appreciate that, but yeah, I feel like buying singles is just my favorite thing, but I understand for a lot of people it just doesn't like hit the same, pun unintended. Um, yeah, so you know what? One more question before I go on to the health and fitness thing. I would love to ask because you did mention that the community in the space is really awesome, lovely, and they can be great. Is there like one thing that's happened whilst you've grown your YouTube channel and where you were like, oh, whoa, like that's really cool, like something you didn't expect, or just like a really cool pro that you were like, oh wow, that's really amazing. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, this might sound a little selfish. I didn't mean to like interpret that question for myself, but I'm going to something this Saturday called Collectopia in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's a huge celebration of Pokemon cards. And so they'll be breaking a world record there for the highest value of collectibles in one room. And so they're setting up a trading card museum. We're going to have 10 or more Pokemon illustrators there. I don't mean the artists who draw the pictures, I mean the card, the Pokemon illustrator, which is like $1 million plus card. Trophy cards. There's going to be celebrities there like Steve Aoki, and so that's a really cool thing. That's something that's like, I was like, wow, okay, this is crazy. I'm going to go and see like millions of dollars of Pokemon cards in one spot. I'm going to get crazy B-roll for my YouTube videos. And I'm also a featured creator. So there's actually a meet and greet. You can go and meet me there. There's like a picture of me up and stuff. So that this whole Collectopia thing has really been probably that big defining moment for me. That's like, wow, Pokemon has made it, but also like, wow, people are seeing me, and that's really validating and cool too.
Oh, that's really cool. That's very awesome. Yeah, just when you've been putting in so much hard work and honestly it shows. So I don't want to say like I'm not surprised, but because I don't know, I guess saying this from afar because I can see how much work you put in and how and what you're doing. So yeah, props to you. And I guess it was always going to be about time. That does sound
Thank
really
you.
fun. That sounds fun. Um, in regard to health and fitness, I know you were in a very evidence-based coach, which is yeah my type of thing as well. And you were in powerlifting for 10 years as well, which maybe I would put a strong bet on that. Not many of your audience, not much of your audience know that. And what? How come you decided to go from? And correct me if I'm wrong. You were in powerlifting for 10 years, and then you went into calisthenics recently.
Yeah, that's right. So short version is I hurt my spine. I ruptured two discs in my back. That's a long story. I wish I could say it was like a motorcycle accident or a jet ski or something, but it wasn't. It was actually a lot of small injuries over the past 10 years. And there's also a genetic component I recently found out. But basically, I was picking up something really heavy at work. I used to work on cars, and I felt a very violent pop in my back. I ruptured two discs, and some X-rays and MRIs and stuff. I found that I have some severely degenerated into intravertebral discs. So um, that really changed my life in a big way because powerlifting was my whole personality, to be honest. And when I couldn't do that, I didn't know who I was. And I struggled with that for a long time. And my reason for switching to calisthenics is because um, I couldn't powerlift. I couldn't pick up weights anymore. And I just needed to do something. I'm sure you can relate. Like a few days off of the gym is just like this icky feeling. But I didn't take a few days off. I took a year off and it was horrible. And my back was getting worse, even though the doctors were telling me, don't exercise, just rest. Um, we know from, the current science, what's going on in the industry now, that's not the best advice. I think what you hear from I don't want to dunk on my doctors too bad, but I think what you hear from maybe a younger doctor who's maybe a little better read on the current research is that, hey, when you get an injury like that, you do have to keep moving. And so everyone was telling me, you got to get an inversion table. Those are the tables that kind of look like a seesaw. You lay on your back and you can tip yourself upside down. And that, what that does is spinal traction. So it actually pulls your spine apart a little bit using gravity, and that puts less pressure on your broken discs or herniated disc, and it's going to relieve pain. And I hated the inversion table, man. Those things suck. Like all the blood rushes to your head. They're massive. They take up so much room. They're really hard to put away when you have an injured back. And you can only hang upside down for so long, like a minute tops, before I feel like my head's going to explode. And then I thought, okay, one day I thought I have to start working out. I got to the point where I thought, I don't care anymore. I don't care if my back explodes. I don't care if I paralyze myself. I have to get up and go do something. So I crawled to my pull-up bar figuratively. I didn't literally crawl, but I was moving pretty slow and I did a pull-up and it was excruciating and I hated it. And the next day I did 10 pull-ups and the next day I did 10 pull-ups and I've worked my way up. And something really amazing happened. I have zero back pain today. I
Funny how it
mean,
works, right?
literally zero back pain. Like I haven't felt anything in months. And that's when I kind of realized inversion tables are for people who can't do pull-ups. You know, if I'm not a doctor, I mean, I this definitely isn't medical advice, but what helped for me was realizing that spinal traction, making space between your vertebrae, works just as well when you're not upside down. You can go hang on a bar. And I thought, okay. And I sold all my barbells and I sold my squat rack and my weights. And I built a very, very simple sort of calisthenic setup in my backyard. And ever since then, I've just been doing an insane amount of pull ups, like more than you would prescribe someone as a coach. And my back pain is gone.
Well, and what year did your, I don't want to say your first pull up, but your first pull up post
So
all of that?
it's been less than a year
Okay.
since that happened.
Oh wow, so you've been recording YouTube videos with excruciating pain in your back.
Yeah, and
Used to, at
recording
least.
videos is one thing, but sitting in front of your PC and editing them is another thing. I
Mm,
and that's I had met with a spinal surgeon, or sorry, that's not true. I was set to meet with a spinal surgeon because I just couldn't stand this pain anymore. And I don't want spinal surgery. I just,
no, that.
I don't want that, man. No one wants spinal surgery. So that's when I sort of like I decided to do something about it and do those pull-ups. That was last summer. So it's probably around 9 or 10 months since then.
Mm. I can definitely relate. I think when exercise, and this doesn't have to just go for exercise, but I think exercise just gives you, once you've been doing it for long enough and you've been consistent with it for long enough, it does become a part of you can say it becomes a part of your identity almost. Um, I think whether or not people realize that is another story, but I think it does, especially like just the habit of doing it, the feeling it gives you, the good feeling. And I think when that's suddenly taken away from you, I think it can mentally mess with you quite a lot. Um, and it does for many people, as you said. So I think I'm honestly, it makes me very happy that you managed to find another form of exercise that you can do, didn't cause pain, and in fact only made what you were feeling much better. I think calisthenics, to be honest, it does make a lot of sense regarding the injury as well, just the type of exercise it is. Um, so honestly, that was a good move. Wow, so you owned your own barbells, squat rack, all of that. Like, you were firmly into powerlifting world right then, if you like had all of your own stuff, right?
Yeah, when I say it was my whole personality, it really was. Like, and that's not a healthy thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely, you don't want to do that. I say that with some shame and embarrassment, but yeah, that was. I cleared out a room in my basement. I painted the walls. I put some rubber mats down, and I had a home gym, and I loved it so much. I kept my Gold's Gym membership, and I worked out at both. You know, like it was my whole personality. And when I couldn't powerlift anymore, I definitely filled that void with Pokemon and YouTube. So that I'm sure that has something to do with where I am today. It was just shifting that obsession and sort of filling that hole in me with something else. But I think I'm at a healthier stage now where I don't want my whole personality to be Pokemon cards or YouTube or calisthenics. It's I want people to like me for me and know that I love my wife and my three cats and just other stuff.
What was your favorite powerlifting exercise and what's your favorite calisthenics exercise now?
Man, I think I always went kind of back and forth bench press. So I'm a very tall, lanky guy. In
Okay,
other
how,
words, not a good powerlifter.
yeah.
So I was just over 6 feet before I hurt my spine. Now I'm 5'11", which is crazy. Crazy that I lost an inch, but I that's what happens when your discs compress. Yeah, so around let's say around 6 feet. The heaviest I ever was 190, but usually I sat closer to 175.
Okay,
Um,
pounds, yeah. Yeah, I
Sorry,
had to,
yeah, pounds. I'm Canada. I sometimes we're actually officially mixed here. So sometimes I just speak in imperial, sometimes I speak in metric. Um, yeah, so bench press was my favorite. I got a very impressive bench press. I think for the length of my arms at least. My best bench press was 285 pounds. I only ever did that once. Um, but that started hurting my back, which is originally deadlift was my favorite lift when I started powerlifting. But very quickly that turned into my weakest lift because it made my back the sorest. I don't mean like you worked out your back yesterday kind of sore. I mean like my lumbar spine is sore. And so my I didn't train my deadlift more than like maintenance mode, I would say. And so all of that passion kind of went into my squat. Squat was my favorite for a long time. Um, and bench press was sort of like a close second. I love them all, man. I don't know how to answer that question. I love squat, bench, and deadlift. My favorite calisthenics exercise is the muscle up. I think just because at first it seemed impossible, and then once I could do it, I realized that there's still so much more to learn with that movement. Like my first muscle up, I jumped on the bar. It was a big swing. I pulled myself up. I got my chest on the bar. I stopped. I took a breath. I did a dip, and I basically fell off. I'm now at a point where I can do a muscle up without swinging and in one motion. I no longer stop on the bar and take a breath. And there's still so much more to do. There's strict muscle ups, and you see some guys do muscle ups and it just looks physically impossible the way they do it.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
just
I
like
really
it's
appreciate
so
that movement.
smooth, like
Yeah,
effortless,
yeah,
like butter. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah.
yeah.
It looks like they're floating almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never actually trained enough to do a muscle up, so it's not something I've done yet. I would like to dedicate a phase of my training eventually to just calisthenics because bodyweight movements have always been something I really enjoyed, and I feel like I can be quite good at them. So I think if I dedicated some time to it, I could definitely get to a muscle up. I think it's just a question of yeah, just taking the time to do it because that looks like one of those exercises where they're just like it's a very rewarding and cool one to do. I think the human flag would eventually be a really cool one to be able to do, but that's I think going to be even trickier than a muscle up. I've never trained for that as well either. Yeah, but yeah, calisthenics are fun. They're fun. If that's your, if for some people, yeah.
True.
Was there anything else in the podcast episode today that we didn't discuss? You'd like to speak about in more depth about trading cards, YouTube, Pokemon, health and fitness that I don't know, we glossed over or we didn't even mention at all, and you would like to bring up before I wind down this podcast episode?
Yeah, I feel like I was pretty like disjointed with with a lot of the things I talked about. So to tie that all together, I would say like the one thing that I've really found sort of what's the word I'm looking for, consistent through my phases of Pokemon cards, YouTube, powerlifting, calisthenics, losing my identity, and all stuff like that, is discipline. I think discipline's incredibly important. And I think now, like if you're struggling in life, if things are hard, if you're trying to learn a skill, whatever it is, I think if you discipline yourself, I think life gets easier. That's what I found for me. That's definitely true. I think that is probably true for others. But yeah, I think just all of all of that I spoke about has a backbone of discipline, and I think that's really important.
Mm, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I don't want to, I think we'll leave it there today. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on, Oliver. I appreciate that. I know you're incredibly busy. You have a lot to do, but again, I appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat with me about, Pokemon cards, fitness, YouTube, all of that. It was a fun one. And if someone has never heard of you before, where is the best place to find you? And I'll link all of that in the show notes of the podcast episode.
Just YouTube, sleeve no card behind. It's a pun. It sounds like leave no card behind, but it's sleeve because we often sleeve our cards. I'm on other socials under the same name, but I'm on YouTube mostly.
Okay, I'll link that in the show notes of the podcast episode. Again, Oliver, thank you so much for coming on. Take care.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.